Hey there, Prairie Plant Girl here. Well, it's past the middle of June and I still haven't given you a June update, so I thought I would bring you around and we'll have a real quick look through the yard. I don't think a lot has really changed as far as what's growing. We just haven't had much weather to get things really going here. It's been pouring rain, crazy winds, and quite cold. Still getting down, like, getting a little nervous about frost still in the middle of June here. But I have taken a lot of the plants that I had started as seedlings and I've put them in the ground. And I've potted up most of my pots and planters now. And so a lot of that is done. The greenhouse is almost completely emptied out. So I thought that we might just take a minute right now while the winds are somewhat calm and the clouds aren't actually pouring rain out of them. And we'll have a quick little look around. The garden really won't show much. I'm not really hopeful for big harvest this year, but unless things really turn around. But it's good to see what's going on in other parts of the world, or to see that gardeners in your same part of the world are experiencing the same things. So let's have a look together. So as we come into the garden here from beside the garden shed, you'll see this bed here is where I had somewhat recently planted some squash and cantaloupe, and I had big cages for the cantaloupe to climb up, but it has been so cold I've put cold frames over them. I really should almost just hoop this whole bed for the squash, but squash are a little more cold hardy. This one squash, this is the Styrian hollis, is doing its best to do something here. I've also thrown in some giant parsley, and I put a few zinnias across the front here. But I'm not too hopeful for these melons. There's the tip top, and volunteer something coming up in the middle there, but the side plants are the tip top melons. And I just have these glass old windows over some wood frames, and they're just propped open a bit so they don't get too hot on the odd time the sun comes out. But there's the neon pumpkin I planted in that video. This is just some volunteer dill and kale. And these Minnesota midget melons are really looking sad. And I am not sure what's going on with this rouge vif de temps, but I'm thinking that's maybe some sort of disease. So I really should look that up and figure out what the deal is with that. And back here, you can see the cages that the melons had around them are just leaning there. And there's some Jemison potatoes that I'd planted in the front. And the plan was that the cucumbers would be climbing up and doing their thing before the potatoes got too big, but it's just been too cold. They got put out here late, and I'm not sure, like, some of them are looking pretty rough. But we'll see. If we get some heat, then maybe we'll get something out of them. But the lettuce is loving it, and the radishes and the spinach. So that bed is looking fabulous. And the beets are happy. The celery is happy. Celery doesn't care about the cold weather. Onions are good. The watermelon I also had to cover, so they're under these cloches here. And they haven't grown much or done much. These are beets. And there's more beets over there, and a bit of spinach. You see a lot of the flowers that I had here have been cleaned up. That's a bunch of mostly volunteer calendula, though I can see a thistle and some dill under there as well. The apple tree is loaded with apples, so hopefully I'm going to get a good apple crop. But even my peas, like, haven't really grown a lot. I need to get my beans planted in here, but I've been kind of putting it off because the weather's been cold, but I need to get them planted. I have no idea. That looks like maybe garlic or something that's coming up there volunteered, and then this is just volunteer tulips that always come up. Over here is the tomatoes. They're looking really good, and I don't know if I showed this, but I planted nasturtiums along the edges of this bed, and they're coming in nice. I actually need to get in here and tie up some of these tomatoes are falling over, and they need to get tied up again. And I noticed one day that I had a couple of steaks with no tomatoes in them, so I just added a couple of extras that I had. So what was that one there? An Amish paste, a Manitoba, which is a bush, and then I had a California Wonder pepper I threw in there and some basil. So, and there's some extra petunias. I'm saving these for when my spring flowers are done in some of the planters I'll show you in a minute. And I'm thinking I'll just fill in those gaps with the petunias, but I thought I'd have had to do that by now, but I don't. My cabbage is looking great. You see they're filling in these hoops. They're looking fabulous. I should be harvesting cabbage soon. The zucchini are actually, of all the squash I planted out, the happiest. These summer squash, then there's 3 different varieties there, and they're all actually doing pretty well. I don't know if the little hoops are giving them some protection from the wind or what. There's more cabbage, volunteer dill, onions. And then this bed over here has some radishes, which look great. I should get in there. Can you see those nice radish bulbs in there? I need to get some of those eaten. And I have a few turnips, and there's the odd kohlrabi coming in there. And the cauliflower is growing nicely. It hasn't started to flower up yet. A few weeds doing all right in there too. I don't pull this up very often to get at the weeds. And I have 3 or 4 broccoli plants over there that are looking pretty good. Again, no flowers yet, but they're growing nice, so that should come soon. A few flowers here, or I guess annual plants waiting to get planted out still. I have one more pot I want to do for my front yard. They're just patiently waiting. And then I have a few peppers and a little bit of garlic and gladiolus and volunteer dill in there. So the peppers don't seem to be minding this cool weather. There's lots of peppers growing here. They're not huge peppers, but there's lots hanging in here, so that's good. At least they're not minding this cold weather. And then my rhubarb is going crazy there. I've had one harvest. I should have harvested some more off of there. My rose. And then these are the pots that I had put pansies and ranunculus and anemones in, and then I planted potatoes underneath. And you can see the potatoes have grown up now, but I've really enjoyed this. And even with the potato foliage, the ranunculus and anemones are still rising up above there and making it look really pretty. This pot and this pot were the first 2 I planted this year, way back in was it April? And we've had a lot of very cold weather and snow, but they are looking great. Snapdragons, pansies, I think there's ranunculus. Yeah, ranunculus in there. So these are some of the pots that I'll need to clear out eventually, I'm sure, to put some pansies in, or some petunias in. You see in the greenhouse, there's still I still have some extra peppers. I have some cabbage and cauliflower in the back, on a shelf back there. I have a few things still going in there, some extra begonias and that didn't get planted out. And then here is where I just put the sweet potato vine. You see, got a little nip of cold, but this is coming back, that one there, so hopefully I get something coming out of those. There's another one down in there. And then all these potatoes. These are the potatoes I planted in pots in the greenhouse in, was it April? Yeah, and they're flowering, just starting to flower, so I should be harvesting potatoes out of those 3 pots soon. And then I actually have some more potatoes that I'm going to be planting up in pots soon to get another sowing going. These are my carrots. I need to do some trimming on the trees above me, and that'll bring in some more sunshine, but they're doing all right. The radishes in this bed, well, this one has a a bit of a bottom to it, but a lot of them didn't really fill out. They just mostly grew tops. And there's been something coming through here at night, leaving footprints in here. I don't know, there's a stray cat, there could be a squirrel. I want to show you my cherry trees. So these are the cherry trees that the University of Saskatchewan came up with. This is Juliet. And you can see they're starting to color up. These are the earliest cherries I think I have are Juliet. It's not quite loaded, I wouldn't say, with cherries, but it was flowering when it was still, we were getting some pretty frosty cold nights, and so I'm wondering if maybe it didn't get well pollinated because it's just too cold for the pollinators to be out. I think there's only maybe a couple dozen cherries on this tree, but it was loaded with flowers, so I think it was just too early with the cold weather we had for pollination. The Romeo is looking better. This one is a little bit later than the Juliet, and you can see just on this one branch here, there's almost as many as the Juliet has. It's pretty loaded up. But you can see there are lots that either didn't do anything, or I think they just didn't do anything. But a fair amount on there. And then over here is Cupid, and I don't know if there's actually cherries on this one. It had flowers. Yeah, just the odd cherry. Now Cupid and Juliet are younger trees than the Romeo. So Romeo should be in better production than them too. Yeah, there's only like one or two on this. It had flowers, but it doesn't look like they turned into much. And this is the tree I started from a cutting. This is not a University of Saskatchewan tree, and I'm not exactly sure on the variety, but it's a sour cherry as well. And it has quite a few hanging on it. I think this is the latest one I have. There's one more. The parent plant for this is way at the back of the yard, and it has some fruit on it as well. It's by my compost. So let's go over here. Oh, my strawberries are doing great too. See, they're starting to color up. I should be picking strawberries soon. That's just a random one. A couple that have spread out in the flower beds, but then there's the actual bed of strawberries. So I should be getting lots soon. And then I planted these pots up here. There's one on either side of the doors of the shed. And I've just been coming out whenever I could get out, usually in the evenings when it wasn't raining or too windy to work, and planting what I can. So this I put in, this is the firecracker vine. And I have 3 in each of these pots. There's another one there. I think there's one on the other side somewhere, but maybe, oh, down in there. And then I just threw in a couple of marigolds. These are the chocolate covered cherry coleus that I grew from seed. These are petunias that I purchased, and before I planted them in this soil, they had a real dusky kind of red tone to them, like the outside of the coleus leaf. And now they're a much brighter pink look, like the inside. So I'm not sure what that's about. And then there's the bacopa that I grew from seed. And this is some superbena that I purchased. And it's not flowering right now, but it should be. So yeah, I would have expected this pot to be full and lush already, but it just hasn't been warm enough. But I expect once these plants take off, once we do get some heat, this will look really nice here against the light colored shed. And then I've been, like I said, just coming out and whenever I can, just plunking plants in that I grew from seeds. So I've been filling this space in. This is mostly annuals in here with a few perennials. But here's the Petolitis Joey right here. I grew this from seed for the first time. This is a real funky little flower. Doesn't want to focus on it real well, but kind of cool. And then you can see there's some calendula in there. There's a few Rudbeckia that I popped in. And I tried to just kind of place things in amongst the perennials. Like these are the liatris I planted last year, so those are perennial. And just kind of fill in the gaps between them. I put in a bunch of the cosmos that I grew from seed. Are filling all in here, and there's some volunteer bachelor button, some volunteer sunflowers, and I planted a few sunflowers as well that are small still. And then I have a few more rudbeckia down there, and then the asters, and these are the poppies. Lots of asters. These are volunteer onions. I have a tray I dumped in here last year, but I didn't think the seeds are germinating, and then they came up, and I've just left them to do their thing ever since. You can see the peonies are ready to burst open. And then over here, if I back up a bit, now I wish I had smaller stakes, but all I had left was these kind of 5-foot stakes, and I've just kind of made a grid because it has been so windy, but I put in dahlias, gladiolus, I don't know, just my acidanthera, my crocosmia, and then I have like gomphrena. I've just kind of tucked a bunch of things in here all around each other, so hopefully they'll support each other even in these windy days. There's some bees friend that volunteered and came up, and then I'm pretty sure there's some smaller bees friend in there that I planted this year. This dahlia, this is out of the, I think this is out of the Sunny Reggae mix. It's kind of done already, but kind of a fun looking flower. Kind of reminds me of the ones called Pooh. I need to do some deadheading, I guess. And then I planted a bunch of stalks, and I put a bunch of my impatiens in under the ash trees and amongst the other plants that I already had there, the perennials, the hostas, heuchera. I have rhododendrons in there. And then I have some status. And there should be some straw flower in here. Can't remember even what everything is anymore. See when it comes up. What was this? Oh, scabiosa. So not too much is flowering. This is soapwort, these pretty little flowers. This is a perennial, and it's a bit of a ground cover, a taller ground cover. And there's the straw flower coming up there, and then snapdragons in the back. I'm very happy. My heucheras came back this year. A lot of times they don't come back for me. I had these in a pot last summer, and then I planted them out at the end of summer, and they came back, so that's nice to see. This area has filled in very nicely over the years. A lot of native kind of shade-loving, damp space kind of loving plants. Lots of hostas and creeping dogwoods and trilliums, ferns, Solomon's seal. Here's another pot I put together. So this was one of the dahlias that I grew. I picked up in a bag from Costco. It started inside. These are a ball type dahlia, and then I just stuck some of my petunias that I started from seed, and my lobelia I started from seed. So these petunias, this one and this, came out of the same saved seed from I think it's called Pink Shockwave that I grew last year, and I collected the seeds. And this is what I wound up with, was a mix, and there's some purpley ones too. They're not in here, but so just get a real mix. You don't know what you're gonna get when you save seeds sometimes. And then here's the planters that I put that are along this front of the deck. They're full of pansies and ranunculus, anemones. There's some stalks in here. I don't know if there's, I think there's sweet peas, maybe? I thought I had sweet peas in here, but I don't see any coming out. These are my amaryllis. They're just out trying to catch the sun and the heat from the summer, and I'll eventually plant them somewhere and dig them up again for the fall. Here's the rest of these pots on the side here. I'm happy with how those turned out, though I thought they would have been changed out by now. But I'm enjoying them. And then down here I put my my cherry tomatoes. And I need to get some ties and actually attach them to that trellis. But there's cherry tomatoes there. This one's actually has some on it. And then I have calendula and these petunias. I can't remember, what are these? They're double blue easy wave or something like that. But these were purchase seed, and some came out like this, and some came out with these white splotches. I really like this white splotch. And then I have lots of calendula. Where is it? The basil and a few marigolds in here. And I think, yeah, there's sweet peas in here too. They need something finer to climb on. Need to be able to get them over to the string so they can make their way up. They're looking pretty good. This creeping thyme or carpet thyme that I tried to move from the front yard did not take off well. There is some that's green. There's some over here. Don't mind the tree branches. Like, the winds have just been crazy. But I do have some of this carpet thyme as plugs that I grew from seed this year in the greenhouse, so I'll get that put in here eventually here. And then it doesn't look like much, but I planted out the herbs I had either grown from seed, or there's a rosemary up there. I just put them in that stacking tower there. They don't look like much. The stalk is so nice to have in here. It smells so nice. And I walk by here all the time and I can smell it. Here's another pot that I put together with one of those pom-pom or ball dahlias from that bag from Costco, and I just am loving this. And for some reason this is facing kind of away from the patio, but I can see it from my back door, so it's just beautiful. And I didn't know what color any of these dahlias would be, so, and they weren't blooming yet when I planted them, so I just kind of popped whatever around them. And again, it's just there's some scaevola in here. That's this purple kind of fan-shaped flower. And Dusty Miller that I grew from seed. I purchased the scaevola. And then lobelia that I grew from seed, and petunias again. These are from the saved seed, I believe. This pot, I think that's the exact same combination as the other one. And then there's one over there. And that one has, this one I think is a purple creamsicle, no, orange creamsicle dahlia that overwintered in a pot last year. And then some lantana that I purchased, and then just more of the petunias, not lantana, what is this called? Verbena, right? Yeah, verbena. And then petunias, again, that I grew from seed. Looks like I need to be out doing deadheading. I just haven't been outside much. And again, I planted a bunch of my extra impatiens around here. The dog just insists on running through this area here, so they're pretty squished. Even though I've put pots and bird baths and little fencing and things in the way, he still goes through. This is the last pot that I did with the dahlia in the middle. And again, scaevola. This one has bacopa that I grew from seed, and a petunia that I grew from seed, and a little bit of the lobelia. Again, they're struggling in the cold weather. These plants aren't made for that cold weather. Speaking of plants not made for the cold weather, I finally just bit the bullet and planted this up. I've been kind of waiting, but I was getting tired of looking at this empty hanging basket here. So this is my begonias that I either overwintered as tubers or as cuttings. So this one is the, what is it called? Valencia? I wonder if I have the tag in here. It's a very pretty little begonia that hangs with these cute little hanging flowers. I don't see the tag. And then this is a yellow double. And then I just have a few little Cupid sweet peas. These are really short. They're only like 6 to 9 inches long. And then some bacopa. But I think that turned out really nice. And they seem to be taking the cold and the wind. They must be just protected enough there. And I think I showed you these planters. I think I planted these in a video and they're looking great. So this has, there's a double begonia in this one and a single, but they're both a pink begonia. And then I have the purple Terenia, which I love. I love Terenium. And then some white impatiens. It's just nice and simple, but it is a very nice effect here at the back of the patio. Here's my flower beds. And again, I've just been filling in. So there's some zinnias, nigella. I don't know if you see it there. It's kind of tiny and wispy. This, nothing came back that I had as perennials here. So I have a few sweet peas, but even they're struggling. There's cosmos back there. And then again, this is liatris that I had planted last year that I started from the corms or rhizomes. I'm not sure what the root is of the liatris. And this is like a false sunflower. And daylilies and lilies. Rudbeckia. So those are all perennial. And then here's one of the pots, the hanging baskets I put together. And you can see, now if it had been warm and decent weather, this would have been all grown and meshed together by now, but it's coming. They're definitely, lobelia's coming up. The petunias are coming up from the bottom and the others are starting to drape over the edge there. So it's coming. And these flower beds are looking a little crazy right now while I wait for the daffodil and tulip foliage kind of die back, but tried to plant in around it with annuals so that they will fill in and it won't look empty once they're gone. I don't think these squash are going to do much that I put back here. They're back there. That one's kind of getting swallowed up by the turtle's head. And I moved this. I don't even know what kind of shrub this is. It doesn't really show up that well, the background. This I had put in my garden by the fence. It was just a tiny little seedling that popped up in my yard one time. And some sort of cedar or something. I don't know what it is. Juniper, I guess. So I guessed at how big it's going to be and how much room it would need. And I thought it might be nice if it just did grow up and get tall here in this area between the cherry trees. And we'll see what happens with it. There's also hydrangeas in here. You can't hardly tell because of all the daffodil foliage. There is another one down in there as well. And a yew hiding in the back here. And that's a real narrow, it's supposed to be a narrow upright yew, but they never do much here. And there's supposed to be more squash back there. The delphiniums are looking great. And the ranunculus, is that ranunculus or anemone? I get them mixed up once they're in the ground. I think that one's a ranunculus. This is the, I can't remember the name of it. It was a heliopsis that I planted last year. And it's kind of like a false sunflower. And it's really put on growth. There's 3 of them. There's one there, one there, one there. I think those are going to be really nice this year. There's the third hanging basket. And then a few more squash down in here. And a few more annuals that I tucked in, more nigella. It's all coming along, and I am getting some things put in the ground now, but like I said, I'm just waiting for the weather to kind of settle into summer still. So we're making progress, but not as far ahead as I would have liked by this time of year. But it's Saskatchewan, so you just never know what the weather brings, and I'm not going to complain about the rain because we've been so dry for so many years. So I'm trying to just enjoy it and take the days as they come. So I'll give you a quick little shot at the end of this video of my front yard, but not really anything has changed, I don't think, out there since the last video. So I'll just give you kind of a quick overview of it. And other than that, that's the update of what's growing in my Zone 4 now, Saskatchewan, Canada garden. Thanks for coming along, and we'll see you next time. Bye.